If you've recently left a job or you have an old 401k sitting out there and you're wondering whether you should consider rolling it over, then you'll want to watch this video as I'm going to discuss 5 different reasons as to why it could make sense to roll over your old 401k to an IRA. Welcome back. This is episode 257. The predominant way that many Americans save today for retirement is through an employer-sponsored retirement plan. And most for-profit companies offer what is known as a 401k plan. Anytime you change jobs or leave a job for another, you're then leaving behind a retirement plan, most likely a 401k plan. And you may be wondering what you should do with a previous 401k plan. In this episode, I'm going to cover 5 reasons as to why rolling over your old 401k into an IRA may make sense. But before I get into that, if you're 50 and older and you want to learn more about planning your retirement, then consider signing up for my on-demand retirement planning course. It's called Retirement Readiness On Demand and is available on my Retire with Ryan website. I take you through step-by-step how to create your own plan for retirement. We talk about taxes, Social Security, Medicare, investments, insurance, estate planning, and much more. It's a 7-hour course where I also give you a number of helpful worksheets for you to put together your own retirement plan. And the best part about this course is that you get to go through it at your own pace. To sign up, head over to retirewithryan.com, click on courses, then Retirement Readiness On Demand. Now, as I mentioned earlier, anytime you leave a job, you're potentially leaving behind your old retirement plan with that company. And any money that you've contributed into that plan is often 100% vested. That's your money. Any employer contributions may have a vesting schedule, so that money might not all be yours, or you might have to wait a little while until it's fully vested. It's fully yours. But assuming that all the money in your retirement plan is vested, you then have 4 different options as far as what you can choose to do with that money. So let's just talk about what those options are. And then we'll talk about one option in particular, how if you want to explore that, some reasons as to why it could make sense. So one option is that if your employer plan allows it, you can just leave your money in that retirement plan. If you like that retirement plan, if you are just too busy right now to deal with it, you can just leave the money in the plan. Option number 2 is that you could take it all out and pay taxes on it. That would mean that you took a full distribution of all the money. It all became taxable to you in the year that you took the distribution. And that's probably not great because that means now all that money's taxable income to you. And if you're under 59 and a half, that could be subject to an additional 10% penalty. So you'd be paying federal tax, potentially state income tax, and a federal tax penalty. Option number 3 is that if you have moved on to another job, and that new employer offers a retirement plan, they offer a 401k plan, you may be able to move that money into that new employer plan. You'd have to check with the employer to see if that is possible. And the third option is what I want to discuss more about as far as why this might make sense, is moving the money to an IRA or an individual retirement account. So that would be if you already had an existing IRA somewhere. If you don't, you can then open one. We use Charles Schwab as our preferred custodian for clients, but you could use Fidelity, Vanguard, any firm that maybe your current advisor uses where they have their clients' money custodied. But the important part would be to have an individual retirement account in your name only, not a Roth IRA, because we're going to assume that most of this money is pre-tax money. If it is after-tax money, and then you would need a Roth IRA, or if you already have Roth money in the account, then you would need to open a Roth IRA. So in either sense, if you have pre-tax money, that could be rolled over to a traditional IRA. If you have after-tax money or Roth money, that can be rolled over to a Roth IRA. So let's talk about the 5 reasons why it could make sense to pursue this 4th option, that is moving the money from your previous retirement plan, 401k, over to a IRA. So option number 1 really has to do with control. And anytime that you've left a company, now you might not have as easy of access to that money. So chances are, hopefully that company has a website where you can log in and view that money, but you won't be making any new contributions to that account. And sometimes with companies, their benefit system is all tied in together. So you might have to create a new login to be able to view that retirement account if it was all through one benefit system login. And what could happen is that over time, as you're moving on to another job, you could forget about that account. Maybe you're not viewing it very often. And some people entirely forget about retirement accounts. And if that's the case, it just is not the greatest thing because you're not really watching the account. You don't have probably a plan for that money as far as maybe how it's invested or making changes to it over time. So by moving that over to an IRA, where hopefully you can consolidate any old previous retirement accounts, that gives you then more control. And if you're consolidating your accounts with one provider, like maybe you're consolidating your money with Charles Schwab, then it's a lot easier for you to log into one place and see all your accounts in one place. It's easier to then manage them, to come up with a strategy of how that you're going to invest the money. And it's really a wonderful thing to, just have more consolidation and have less accounts that you have to manage. It's certainly, you can do it with having money in multiple places, but the more you can consolidate your investments, it's going to make your life a lot easier. In an extreme case, if the business were to shut down, they could then be legally required to terminate their retirement plan, and they might end up sending you out a distribution check or contacting you about filling out paperwork to receive a distribution of your retirement account. That does happen from time to time. It can happen when companies are sold. It can happen with mergers. It can happen with bankruptcies. So if you have money in that old retirement plan, it is possible that maybe if the records weren't updated and you've moved, they don't know where to reach you, and there could be problems with that. So definitely, it's one of the reasons for control and just simplification by moving your money from an old retirement account into an IRA. If you're going to leave it there behind in the old 401k, make sure that your address and email address are up to date, and also that your login information is up to date so that if you need to get into that account, you can do it. Option number 2 is in investment options, increased investment options and flexibility. So what that means is that in most 401k plans have a limited menu of funds that they offer. Standard 401k plans offer about a dozen up to maybe 20 individual fund options. So these are individual funds you can select, like one might be a large cap stock fund, one might be an international, one might be a small cap, maybe real estate. But there's really no standardized requirement for what 401k plans offer. I look at hundreds of 401k plans from working with my clients as well as prospective clients, and I do see some 401k lineups that are pretty good. Other lineups are not great. They're very minimal. They don't offer a lot of options for a client to properly diversify. Additionally, most 401k plans also have target date funds, which the date in the fund is supposed to correspond to the age at which you're going to, or the year that you're going to turn 65. So if you want to put it on more autopilot, not worry about your investment options, you can use one of these target date funds, because the further away you are from retirement, the more aggressive the fund invests. And then the closer you get to retirement, the more conservative it becomes, meaning more money gets shifted into bonds and into cash. So that could be the right mix for you, but it might not be. Additionally, 401k fund costs can vary, and some of the funds offered might not be appropriate funds for you. So by moving the money over to an IRA, if you move it over to a discount broker like Charles Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard, it will open up a whole host of options available to you. It'll open up a lot more mutual funds if you want to use mutual funds to build your portfolio. It could open individual stocks. You could buy certificates of deposit, CDs, U.S. Treasury bonds, corporate bonds, and you could buy exchange-traded funds. So it really offers you a much wider selection of investment options than the typical 401k. Some 401k plans do allow for a brokerage window where you can buy some of the things we talked about, but most don't, and that's another reason to think about rolling over the money to an IRA. especially with an independent discount broker. That way you have a large selection of funds that you can choose from. The third thing to think about, and I talked a little bit about it in reason number 2, and that is investment costs. Inside of 401k plans, there are ongoing investment costs, and those costs can be very low when you're dealing with some government retirement plans and larger companies. Generally, those costs are lower, but when you're dealing with small and mid-sized companies, those costs can be very high. And those costs could range on the low end, maybe 0.1%, on the high end, up to 1%, possibly 1.5%, 2%. So if they're on the higher end, if they're in the 1% or higher, that could be really a drag on your investment returns by paying these higher costs. So by switching it over to an IRA where you can lower the costs, that could be significant savings for you, especially if you're going to invest how I invest with my money and for my clients' money using low-cost ETF funds where we can get their investment costs down around 0.1%. So that can be a lot of savings to you that can help your account to grow more over time and you to have more money to spend in retirement. So definitely the IRA rollover can help you to lower costs. Option number 4, or reason number 4, I should say, why a 401k rollover could make sense is that if you have any Roth monies in the account, there's a couple ways that you could benefit by getting that out of the 401k. So anytime you move money out of a 401k, we'll talk about Roth monies first, Roth 401k money over to a Roth IRA. Let's say that's ultimately your goal. You have to wait for the Roth IRA account to be open for at least 5 years from the year of the first contribution to the point where then after that 5 years has gone by, you can take out the gains on the contributions without taxes or penalties. So if you don't have a Roth IRA open, by rolling over your Roth monies in your 401k, that can be a way for you to start your Roth account and start the 5-year clock. Now, if you do have a Roth account you've been contributing to for years and you've had it over 5 years, this won't be an issue when you do go to roll over your money. But if you don't have one, by rolling over the Roth money into the Roth IRA, that can help you to start that 5-year holding period. Additionally, if you have any after-tax money in your retirement account, you can then split that from the pre-tax money and roll that into the Roth IRA to then allow the gains on that Roth money to grow tax-free rather than growing on a pre-tax basis. So you might not be aware that if you're trying to do the mega backdoor Roth, if you're contributing after-tax money into your 401k plan, chances are, unless your 401k plan allows for in-plan Roth conversions, that money is actually sitting there in the pre-tax account earning interest. So any of the interest you're earning is on the pre-tax side. The Roth contributions are staying there tax-free, but the gains on them are not growing tax-free. So by splitting that out and getting that over into the Roth IRA, that'll allow any future gains on that money to grow tax-free. So that's another thing if you have after-tax money. Additionally, maybe a Roth conversion makes sense. And again, unless your 401k plan allows for in-plan Roth conversions, by rolling your money over to an IRA, you can then decide if you want to convert some of that money over to a Roth IRA. You can do that in the year that you do the rollover, or you can do that on an annual basis going forward, reviewing your pre-tax account and your taxes to look at what your projected income is for the year to determine if you want to convert some of that money over to a Roth IRA. So these are just some of the reasons why, for the Roth money component, that it can make sense to do an IRA rollover. And lastly would be if you're looking for some ongoing investment management or for some professional help. So if you're looking to work with a financial advisor and you want them to manage your retirement accounts, generally that money has to be rolled over from your 401k over to an IRA to a company that your advisor can work with so that they can manage those 401k monies for you. So what would your advisor be doing? Well, they'd be helping you figure out what your asset allocation is. They would be helping you to invest the money. They would then be managing the account on an ongoing basis, making changes to the investments as it was necessary based off market conditions, based off changes in your goals, helping manage distributions, and then any additional services that the advisor would provide, such as tax planning, financial planning, could come as part of that relationship with your advisor. So these are 5 reasons why, it could make sense for you to roll over your 401k. And be sure to listen to next week, because next week I'm going to cover some of the reasons why it might not make sense yet for you to roll over your money from your 401k over to an IRA. There are some reasons that you want to be aware of that could potentially make it not a good time for you to roll over your money from a 401k to an IRA. So make sure you listen next week, where I'll cover those additional things to consider. Have a great week, and I look forward to talking with you next Tuesday. Take care.